Gadadhara Srivastava Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So today we are going to see two very important shlokas from chapter 9, uh, shlok number 31 and 32. So though very simple shlokas, but very important. Um, and in 30 shlok number 31 from chapter 9, it talks about the internal transformation of a devotee, how he transforms from non-devotee to a devotee. And shlok number 32, it emphasizes more on the supreme spiritual goal, which can be attainable by anybody, whether he's from any gender or any social status or from any background. So simply through the practice of devotion service, he can attain that. So we'll see the shloka first and the translation. Shripram bhavati dharma atma shashvat shantim nigacchati kaunteya pratijanehi name bhakti pranashyati. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. He quickly becomes righteous and attain lasting peace. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perish. We'll also see the next shloka, that is 32. Mamahi partha vyapashritya ye api sayo papayonaya sriyaveshya tatha shudra te api yanti param gatim. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. O son of Partha, those who take shelter in me, though they may be of lower birth, women Vaishyas, merchant and Shudras workers can attain the supreme destination. Hare Krishna. Anybody want to recite the shloka?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, shall I recite?
Hare Krishna Amrita Mataji, please.
Slogan 9 only, okay.
31 and 32.
9, Bhagavad Gita 9.32. Mam hi partha vyapasrit. Oh, change 9.31.
31.
Shipram bhavati dharmatma shashvat shantim nigacchati kaunteya janihi name bhakta pranashyati. Translation shall read, Prabhuji.
Yes, Mataji, quickly.
Translation में देवेंद्र Srila Prabhupada की जय. He quickly becomes righteous and attains lasting peace. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji. 32, anyone to read 32?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Kalyani Mataji.
Bhagavad Gita 9.32 Mam hi parthavyapashritya yepi syuh papayonayah striyo vaishyas tatha shudras tepi yanti parangatim. Translation by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki jai. O son of Pritha, those who take shelter in me, though they be of lower birth, women, Vaishyas, merchants, and Shudras, workers, can attain the supreme destination. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. So we'll see that. So Lord is telling us the most confidential knowledge in chapter number 9. And so these two words, they represent the most confidential knowledge. And it is derailing the power of devotion service, that is bhakti, to transform and elevate any living entity. So not necessarily only human being, any living entity it is saying. And we have seen this shlok number 31, which focus on rapid internal transformation. So how a devotee actually transform, and whereas in 32 when we are seeing, Lord is more emphasizing on the universal accessibility of the supreme spiritual goals. So these are the two very important. So we'll see one by one here. So you see in shlok number 31. So Lord is giving the promise of transformation. So very important. You see this line, Shripam Bhavati Dharmatma. So Krishna here he is declaring that even one who has committed big sins, so that is also called as Sudachara. He becomes righteous very quickly if they are fixed in the devotional service. So very important to remember this particular point. Whatever sins you have committed, you can very quickly actually come into the path of devotional service if you actually act rightly. So you see that because the soul is inherently pure, our soul is never contaminated, but only because of this external factor, right? The soul becomes impure. So you have to understand this is very tricky when we say soul is impure. So soul is never impure. That we have to remember. So what happens actually when we so there is a difference. Uh, the soul is same when he comes to the material world and when he is in the spiritual world, but there is a very thin difference, and that we have to understand that the why this contamination basically happens, right? So when we discussed this previously also, it is all about the mind. So mind, so if you see in the spiritual world, there is nothing called as mind. You have the pure soul and you have the consciousness, right? So in between, there is no mind. But what happens in material world when this particular soul comes here? So everything we acquire knowledge from our different senses, in between there is a translation happens. And that translation is done by the mind. So, and you see this, mind is always material. It is not spiritual. That is why we say we become impure. Because mind in between, it acts as a bridge between the consciousness and the soul. So that is how it happens. So he is saying that the soul is inherently pure and its contamination is only external. And a firm resolve to serve Krishna immediately, a person attains the saintly status. So that paradigm shift it is talking about. And then it is talking about the internal purification process. Because now we know that we are impure, how we become impure. But we have to purify ourselves. And to purify ourselves, there is a proper process. We have to clean it, right? We see our clothes when they get dirty. What we do, we put it into some detergent, washing detergent, soak it for some time, then rinse it, clean it, rinse it. So there is a process, right? So just similarly, this purifying, the internal purifying process, it is very natural cleansing process. So devotion service is described as the cleaning process that basically washes the material contamination from our heart. So unlike Vedic ritual process, where, what happens there? You have to do a lot of praschitya, right? You know what is praschitya. So you have to if you see that if you go through the ritualistic process, the rishi munis and you have seen demons. They have done a lot of praschitya to um, you know those process is very difficult. But what it is trying to say is that for a devotee, for purification of devotee, it is a very simple process, right? By keeping the Supreme Lord within their heart and continuing the constant chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra, that is Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. So, while the old sinful habits may occasionally cause accidental mistake, what it means? Because our because of our past karmas, so we commit a lot of sinful, we actually develop these sinful habits. It is something automatically we are carrying from our past. So that can be also accidental mistakes. Sometimes knowingly, unknowingly, we do a lot of mistakes, right? But what happens? Even our old sinful habits, the power of bhakti is such that it has the clearing tendency. So the complete this internal purifying process is that. So it talks about here, four process of purifying, right? So very basic thing is, and the first process is the sincere intent. Your intent, it should be very sincere. You have to be very sincere, and you have to constantly remember the Lord. How you remember? Through the chanting. That cleans that heart, and then, all your past sins, they or mistakes, they started slowly getting perished, right? So that is how it's a very simple process, right? Otherwise, people may follow very difficult. Um, People do praschatya and so many, people go to Himalaya and do some tapasya and all. Those are very difficult process, but bhakti is the most simple process. And it is also talking about Shashwat Shanti. So what is this? It is about Shashwat Shanti means about lasting peace. It is talking about the permanent peace. So you see here what a person who is actually the material belief is actually carrying a big stone. So whether you first carry it in your head or gradually you put it into your shoulder, one time you will actually shift it to other hand, right hand, left hand to your shoulder. But even then, that burden will never reduce actually. For some time, it may relieve pain from one portion of the body to another portion, but the permanent relief will not come. You want a permanent relief, then you have to completely get rid of this burden of this heavy stone. So, Shashwat Shanti. So it is the the eternal state basically, right? The eternal state to avoid the material fear that we are carrying from long time. So that we have to remember. So it is the actually the freedom from fear. So when it happens, basically this lasting peace can be achieved when the devotee takes shelter of Krishna's feet. And so when he take the shelter, what happens? He reaches to a state where there is even the fear of death is removed. You see that devotee never fear of death. But when you see that person who never take the shelter of Lord, he always have some or other fear. And the biggest fear is the fear of death. He always fear of death because he thinks that the body is everything. Whereas the devotee, he already knows that the soul is everything. So then the Lord is saying, my devotee never perishes. So this is the declaration, and Krishna is asking Arjuna that you declare it boldly that his devotee will never perish. Name bhakta pranashyati. So Krishna asks Arjuna, to make this declaration because he sometimes break his own promises. Who sometimes break his own promises? Krishna. So can we recollect some incident where Krishna broke his promise? Prabhuji's or Mataji's?
In Kurukshetra war, Prabhuji.
Yes, Mahabharata war. So what happens? What vow Lord Krishna has taken? That he will not take up any arm. So, but we have to remember ki if any vow or any promise made to his devotee, Krishna will never break that. He may break his own promise, but if he has done any promise to his devotee, he will never break that. And what he is declaring here that he he's telling Arjuna, you can boldly declare that his devotee will never perish. So we have seen this example. So in Mahabharata, it was a very tricky situation, right? Why? Because Arjuna was a great devotee of Krishna. But on the other hand, Bhishma was also very, very great devotee of Lord Krishna. But in Mahabharata war, both were against each other. And now the Lord has to fulfill the vow, right, of his devotees. So to fulfill the vow of his devotee, he broke his own vow and he took the weapon to fight, right? So we know after that what happens, right? So we move forward. So the universal shelter. Mamhi Partha Vya Ashrita. The core requirement for spiritual success is taking complete, unalloyed shelter in Krishna. So very important point here. We have to take the complete shelter. We cannot partially do shelter and claim that I am, completely surrendered to Krishna. Why the things are not happening to me? So you remember what is actually the barrier? Barrier is nothing but our mind. We keep on translating the things. The mind keeps on translating. That is why we are not completely devote ourselves to shelter in Krishna. So that is why the bhakti is actually the transformation. So Krishna, he explicitly opened the path to the supreme destination to everybody, regardless of their material condition or social standing. So you see here how he has done that. If you remember the canto 10 from Bhagavatam, so there you see the wife of this Brahmanas, while their husbands, they were expert in Vedic rituals. They were doing sacrifice, right? Uh, and that time what happened? Krishna and Balram was hungry. They came there, they wanted food. They asked food from those Brahmana and then these Brahmanas, they just ignored him. Whereas what happened? Uh, the wives of those Brahmanas, they immediately brought the food for Krishna and Balram by risking even the social standing and the anger of their husbands. They immediately offer food to Krishna out of love. And Krishna accepted their offering and granted them highest perfection. So that is called as devotion and taking shelter. So the Gita here clearly tells that whether you are a woman, whether you are Vaishyas or Shudras, may you are from any category, right? If you take the shelter of Lord simply by affection, then there is complete, complete, that is called as complete surrender. And The another example you see from, residents of Vrindavana, where we see that these Gopas and Gopis, who were there, what was their background? They were, if you see the Gopas, they were just farmers, they were merchants, they were class of Vaishyas, not even Brahman. They were not Brahmans. And who were these Gopis? They were all cowherd men and women. So these gopis were the simple village women without any philosophical trainings. They were not having any kind of Vedic training or anything. So they were the highest. The Lord Krishna has given them the highest position. So you see that it is never depend on the class, right? So so you see that the illusion of bodily designation. It's just a illusion. So, what is the material illusion and what is the spiritual reality? You see this, the foundation in material illusion is based strictly on the temporary physical body, right? Whereas the spiritual reality is based on the eternal soul, that is nothing but the Atma. In material, the driver, the dictated by the past karmic action, the papa and punya, what we call. But in spiritual reality is what? It is driven by the sincere devotion, the bhakti, and completely taking the shelter of Lord. So in material, what is the value system? It is based on the birth, where you are taken the birth, whether you are taken birth in a very affluent family or in a lower class, or what gender you are a man or woman, you are a animal or human being. All this categorization is there, right? So whereas in the spiritual reality there is no such foundation. And what is the result? So in the material world, the result becomes the division and the obstacles, all kind of obstacles. Whereas in the spiritual world, it is the universal spiritual equality. That is, soul may it be human or animal, it is all similar, right? So you see that how important it is. Lord is emphasizing on. And one second. So even the lower birth, which is also called as Pap Yoni, this term refers to born in the family or species as a result of sinful activities in our past. And we see, whereas the example of when we see the example, non-human devotees, we have seen in Shastras, we got the stories of elephant Gajendra and bird Jatayu. Both, they also attain the supreme destination, right? Only because of the devotion of Lord. And then we have seen the story of Ajamila. Ajamila, if you see, he was a trained Brahman. Initially, he was a trained Brahman, but he fell down because of his act. He fell down. He abandoned his family because of a prostitute, and later he also engaged in robbery and cheating. And he did this all for 80 years. He did this, but at the moment of his death, what happened? He, out of affection for his youngest son, his youngest son name was Narayana. So he called him during his death, and what happened? So he chanted the holy name, right? Without offense, even though his intent was focusing only on his son. But what happens? The Yamduta, he saved him, right? And later given a second chance. Then he went to Haridwar, he engaged in devotion service, and then he quickly become very righteous. And then eventually he attained the spiritual world. So that is the power of bhakti. And then we have also seen the pastime from Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Narad Muni, he's talking about the story of Mrigari. As you know, the Mrigari was a very cruel hunter who used to get pleasure by leaving animal half killed, half dead, and when the animal used to suffer, he used to be very happy. But after meeting Narad Muni, he began the process of chanting and worshipping Tulsi plant. So he become so non-violent that he not even uh, he avoided even stepping on a ant, small ant. So that was the compassion he developed because of bhakti. So when we are talking about this woman devotees, so you may also think that why in Shastras it is written like this. Prabhupada is translating that woman as a uh, lower class. So we have to remember that ki, it is only a social classification, right? But Lord clearly mentioned that everybody is soul. So there is no point of lower class or higher class. So you see from Kunti Maharani, whose prayers were studied by great scholars. And you see Draupadi, she was protected by Krishna himself when she took the shelter of him. So that is the proof that even women can reach the highest spiritual heights. So it doesn't matter. And there is no actually classification in spiritual world. Only in the material world, this classification are there. And then you see the devotees like Vidur, and then there is Nisha, Dhiraja, Guha. They are considered to be a lower birth socially, right? But they achieved the spiritual perfection through their very sincere service. So you see that there is this classification is actually can be broken. All this classification, social classification, gender classification, this can be broken through complete surrender. So what is the alchemy? So the past mistakes are burned away by the fire of sincere devotion. So our dedication is most important, right? The past karma is entirely neutralized if you absolutely take the shelter of the Supreme Lord. So the ultimate goal is to return to eternal spiritual world, the personal abode of Lord. So by sincere shelter and this practical path that we have discussed so far, right? That is you see the chanting is the lifeline of it. The chanting of the holy name allow any soul to transcend this cycle of birth and death and achieve the highest perfection of life. So we have to constantly say Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we conclude this uh, with this Param Gati, what we say as supreme destination can be reached. So thank you, Prabhujis and Matajis. You want to share any points or any questions? I'll try to answer.
Prabhuji, you have very clearly clarified that whatever differences we see amongst between each other is only material.
Yes.
So that you have really clarified, Prabhuji. Otherwise, always we had a doubt why women are come under this Papa Yoni. It's only we have made those classifications. Actually, there is no classification.
There is no classification. When we are talking about soul,
Yes.
when we think of as a body, then the classification is made based on, you know, all social, these are all social activity. What we, somebody is doing the labor work, they were called as Shudras. If somebody is chanting Vedic hymns, they are called as Brahmanas. But Srila Prabhupada has clearly mentioned that this in Kali Yuga, nobody is Shudra. Actually, everybody is Shudra. Nobody is Brahman. Why? Because everybody is serving, right? We are going to office and working. Even Brahmanas are doing that, right? So actually, we are all Shudras. It's only title name given to us that he is Brahmana, he is Vaishya, he is Shudra, he is woman, he is man. So that we have to remember.